Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Closer Look, the show dedicated to bringing you the facts. We ask the questions no one else will, and we get the answers that no one else can. I'm Ravina Apia. Thanks so much for joining us. In late March, I celebrated 1 year at this very desk. Being the host of A Closer Look for the past year has given me the opportunity to interview some really cool people and to tell some really great stories. The journey so far has been amazing, and we're just getting started. But we thought it might be nice to give you a look back into some of our favorite episodes and a glimpse behind the scenes as well. Stay tuned because this special anniversary compilation episode of A Closer Look begins right after this. But first, a wardrobe change. Welcome back. You're watching A Closer Look. I'm Ravina Apia. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, for this compilation episode, we're taking it all the way back to Season 1, Episode 1. It's been a year since I signed on to do A Closer Look, and when I did, I knew I wanted to talk about things that I was passionate about. At the time, headlines were filled with stories of gender-based violence and the lives that it claimed, specifically among the young women demographic. Well, not much has changed, but my frustration with the issue led me to write my very first opening monologue. Take a look. Good evening and welcome to an all-new season of A Closer Look, a show dedicated to bringing you the facts. We ask the questions that others won't, and we get the answers that no one else can. I'm Ravina Apia. Thanks so much for joining me. Each week, I'll be here to talk you through the stories that are grabbing headlines and spurring national debate. You've heard the stories, and now it's time to take a closer look. This brings us to our starting lineup, a look at the issues on our radar and ones we think should be on yours as well. First off the bench are a series of troubling stories that have thrust the safety of Bahamian women back into the public spotlight, and during Women's History Month, no less. What we've seen in the past several weeks has been an outright assault on the female form. These acts of violence and assault perpetrated against women of all varying socioeconomic backgrounds have been punctuated by equally varied discussions on the rights of women. Notably absent from those discussions, however, has been the acknowledgement of the humanity of those deemed the fairer sex. Conversations disguised as a call for biblical submission sound more like demands for subservience, and what has become clear is that men and women alike cannot make the differentiation. I, for one, would like to see those conversations move away from the very empty rhetoric about what we as a society value as in women, especially when we, and I do mean all of us, pastors, politicians, and Joe Public alike, sit idly by as women and girls continue to be objectified, over-sexualized, beaten, or worse. So, how do we get there? We can start with the way we socialize the next generation of Bahamian children. While I think it's safe to say that we collectively understand that what we teach boys and girls about themselves and what we teach them about each other is important, some of us have not understood the assignment. Teaching your sons to protect their sisters, their female cousins, and friends is great. But what if we taught young boys to see the value in women that they didn't have an immediate familial or romantic connection to? What if we taught boys that their female counterparts are more than just a pretty face? What if we taught them to see girls as more than potential wives or mothers? What if we taught boys that girls are more than just a means to a sexual end? What if we taught them to recognize their humanity? Conversely, What if we taught girls that their value is not solely wrapped up in their ability to labor on behalf of and protect the men around them? Am I saying that women and girls shouldn't want the best for their male counterparts? Absolutely not. But what I am saying is that they should value and respect themselves in a way that does not require that they need to seek validation from the men and boys around them. Next up, we need mechanisms in both law and policy to protect women and girls in real and tangible ways. This looks like housing and shelters for women who need to get out of abusive relationships. This means a dedicated Olivia Benson and Elliot Stabler SVU-style unit in law enforcement, people who are properly trained to help women and girls, and in some cases, men and boys, deal with the traumas of their homes. The time has come for us to stop sugarcoating these offenses and call them what they are. Unlawful sex, rape. Unlawful sex with a minor, rape.
Stay with us. A closer look will continue after the break.
Hey everyone, it's Arabina. We're on set for another episode of A Closer Look, and tonight we're talking all things emancipation. So here's the thing. You may or may not know that I was raised by teachers. That's right. My father was a math teacher, which, if I'm being honest, really didn't do anything to inspire a love of numbers in me specifically, but, that's neither here nor there. And my mom still teaches English language and English literature today. So I think my parents did a pretty good job of instilling a love of reading and learning in me at a very young age. More than that, though, I had teachers who inspired me to greatness. And honestly, that's what I want more than anything for all of the students of the country. To have teachers who inspire them to be their best selves. Which is why this next episode is in fact one of my favorites. It was also an opportunity to introduce you, the viewing public, to our youth correspondent, Shamar Nottage, a very talented and outspoken young man with a bright future ahead of him. Let's take a closer look. I'm joined by my co-host, Shamar Nottage, and tonight we're sitting down with Minister of Education, the Honorable Glenys Hannah Martin. Minister, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, joining you and this wonderful young man.
He's good.
He's good.
So, Minister, we're talking all things education tonight, and one of the first things that the Davis administration did upon coming to office was change the name. I know a lot of governments do change ministry names. Why was it important to include the technical and vocational in with the Ministry of Education?
Yeah, because it's grounded on an understanding that education is multidimensional.
Absolutely.
And in our economy, there are many areas of technical areas, digital areas, vocational areas that children are not necessarily prepared for in the school. Also, not every child is going to be a brain scientist or a brain surgeon. Different children have different talents, and this allows for the spectrum of capacity and ability to be expressed in its highest form. And it also prepares young people for what's happening in our global reality. So I think that this was a very smart new dimension to education.
Minister, so the FTX conference and the government's white paper on digital assets has made things like cryptocurrency a very hot topic.
Yes.
In fact, the Bahamas is positioning itself to become a regional digital assets hub. What are the ministry's plans for including subjects related to digital assets on the curriculum?
That's a really good question.
Yes, very good question, very timely. The whole issue of computer studies is being revamped in our curriculum. And we're now thinking, we were saying grade 7 to 9, but we're now thinking in primary school. We want to expose our children, our young people, to coding, to computers, to technology and the crypto and blockchain whole paradigm that we're now seeing is just an example of how quickly technology is shifting and changing. And that is why it's so important that when we educate our young people, that we educate them that they're able to respond, adapt, analyze, move forward. They don't get stuck in a box with any learning modality, but they're able to continue to keep up with all of the rapidly changing things that are happening in our global reality.
Stay with us. A closer look will continue after the break.
Welcome back. You're watching A Closer Look. I'm Arabina Apia. Thanks so much for joining us. Housing. It's a fundamental human right. But even now, in the year of our Lord 2023, so many Bahamians remain unhoused, which is why this next episode, which features the efforts of the Ministry of Housing to help Bahamians repair and maintain their homes, is so important and ranks highly on my list. Take a look. Our independent correspondent, Catherine Gomez, hit the streets for a closer look.
I'm sure we've all heard the saying, home is where the heart is. And today we're going to speak to two successful applicants of the Home Repair Program.
Minister of State in the Ministry of Social Services and Urban Development, Lisa Ramming, tells us about the Small Home Repair Program and the renewed impact urban renewal is making in inner-city communities post-Hurricane Dorian and COVID-19.
In the past, under the former administration, it was called the Small Roof Repair, and we have since revolutionized the program, and it's now called the Small Home Repair. Because in walking and doing assessments in the various communities, both in the inner city and those that are not in the inner city, we've discovered that persons need repair to their home, and it's not necessarily their roof. They're unable to do it because they're unemployed, they're senior citizens, or they just simply need that help. And so for the Davis administration, this means a whole lot. This is one of our campaign sound bites. And we said and we promised to provide relief, and not only relief, immediate relief.
Minister Ramming says this program will not only restore dignity to homeowners, but it will also provide jobs for small Bahamian contractors, painters, landscapers, and other related service providers.
Two sets of persons would be benefiting from this. One, the homeowners who have long been waiting and looking for hope and help to come to them. And secondly, those very small contractors, not those with the mega companies, those just living in the communities who have been unemployed for years since the pandemic and just looking for that employment. This is just for them.
Minister Ramming also indicated that the home repair program could go beyond basic home repairs to include a total transformation of properties where deemed fit.
Like I said, it's a revolutionized program to the point where we'll be cleaning up areas, not just their homes, but giving them a sense of dignity and pride by extending it beyond the four walls of their homes. And we're going to do a little gardening if we see a little gardening. If they need a little fence around, we'll do that. And we'll be totally cleaning up the area.
Homeowner Linda Roll, a retiree surviving entirely on her pension, says her heart is full of gratitude for being selected for this program, as her house is in serious need of repair.
Words cannot even describe it, but I'm excited. I'm blessed to know that I was one of the chosen ones to do it, and the divine favor from God, because it really could have been God, because I was praying for about 3 years now, 3 years every night. I say to the Lord, Lord, please send somebody to fix in and outside this house. So when it happened for me, I was to say for us, I was all excited and in my joy.
Contractor Sharon Penn gives us an inside look at what repairs will be done.
You will see the roof is leaking here. We intend to repair the roof from outside as first, on top of the exterior. And then we come inside, repair the ceiling, new sheetrock, new T111 where necessary. You'll also notice there are some electrical issues we probably address as well to make sure that when we leave, the home is complete and fully functionable and livable as well.
Penn also says he is happy to repair the homes of homeowners who have been struggling in their dire living conditions for years.
Well, it's a good feeling for a contractor because we instill a sense of pride in the homeowner, and it boosts their morale. And it's a good feeling for everybody, when we get to see a job we completed well done, and they get to appreciate the fruits of our labor as well. So everybody wins.
Homeowner Shadrach Roll, who is a member of the disabled community, has been living in alarming conditions as his roof is severely damaged, yard overgrown and cluttered, and home wrought with major electrical issues. As he is unable to work because of his disability, he said he is incredibly thankful for the help from the home repair program.
It's a relief, and it's a relief to having my home repaired, and a lot of weight off my shoulders on assistance for being assistant of the person with disability, in this country, And it means a lot that the government is stepping up and really putting forward their efforts and the willpower to really help their country fellow men who are in need.
And speaking of basic human rights, the right to access healthy and affordable food options is perhaps the most fundamental of all. During last year's agriculture episode, we had the opportunity to be introduced to Dion Gibson, aka Gibby the Farmer, who taught us all about feeding ourselves and sustaining the country. Let's take a look. If we as a country are serious about creating a more sustainable future for ourselves and our children, then we need to start by taking care of our own backyard. I had the opportunity to sit down with one of the country's leading agricultural consultants and advocates, Dion Gibson. Let's take a closer look at our conversation with Gibby the Farmer.
The story of food helps you understand where your food comes from. When you look at what we eat, where it comes from, that's how we can really begin to start the conversation of, okay, what do we need to grow to meet our dietary needs? Meet Dion Gibson, better known as Gibby the Farmer. As one of the country's leading agricultural consultants, Gibson is a huge advocate for growing your own food. The ultimate goal, he says, is food security. As it stands, the Bahamas currently spends a staggering $1 billion on imported food supply. While the government is actively working to reduce that bill by some 25%, startling statistics suggest that 1 in every 3 people in the Bahamas face some level of food insecurity. Now, according to Gibson, the Bahamas should ideally be able to produce up to 75% of the food consumed locally. But first, he says several things will have to change if that reality is to be achieved. It will require a few things. We'll have to change our diet to a degree because we eat a very Americanized, very African, very Chinese diet. As I often tell people, we don't grow rice in the Bahamas. Why is rice a staple for us? This region is good at growing root crops, legumes, your beans and peas. And if you look around the world, in places where they eat a local diet, let's take Africa or even Latin America, for example, heavy on corn, heavy on beans, heavy on cassava. These things all grow here. I also think livestock is not focused on enough in the country. We can produce meat. Animals are easier to manipulate than plants are. You can create an environment for an animal, whereas the atmosphere kind of dictates what happens with plants a lot of the time. As for the future of the industry, Gibby says young farmers must approach food and livestock production with a certain level of business acumen. I think that we tend to rely on the government heavily and expect the government to sell for us or buy from us. However, the restaurants out there want local food. If you can't produce 500 pounds of a given crop a week, but you can produce 50 or 60, find a smaller restaurant, find a smaller grocer or convenience store, a little mom and pop shop in your settlement. If you're on the Family Island, you drive around New Providence, you can find a dozen of them in every inner city community that I'm sure will purchase from you. And so it's a start. And when you begin to be able to market your own produce, then we get more out there and it's getting to the masses easier.
Stay with us. A closer look will continue after the break.
Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you already know that I rep Grand Bahama Island to the fullest, okay? Freeport all day. And if you've been watching for a long time, then you already know that I take every chance I get to hop a flight back home, which is why the next feature in our compilation episode is the Grand Bahama episode. Let's go. You don't want Mr. Plane? You coming? Let's go. Grand Bahama has been through a lot.
Yes.
We've had back-to-back hurricanes. Now we're dealing with the economic fallout from that and also a global pandemic.
Yes.
When you talk to people on the ground, what are you getting? How are you feeling about the things that people are saying to you? And what can you speak to in terms of the resilience that you still see in Grand Bahamians?
Yes, Grand Bahamians are so resilient. We all know that. We've been through it all, and you mentioned it. You talked about, Matthew and Jane and Francis and Wilma, and we've experienced it all. But the people are now hopeful. They're hopeful because after Dorian, that we hadn't really come out of, we had the pandemic. And we had a lockdown that lasted about 2 months. And so the people are still hurting. There's still so much that needs to be done to bring relief to the people. But now things are happening, and people are excited about it. And you can hear it, in all between the chats. You can hear it on the streets. You can hear it in the messages people send. People are hopeful. People who live in other countries right now are ready to come home. Those who live in Nassau are ready to come home too. And so we're really, really excited about what's happening right now.
Stay with us. A closer look will continue after the break.
Hey everyone, we're behind the scenes of the opening ceremonies of this year's 44th regular meeting of CARICOM right here at the Atlantis Resort. We're here to give you the inside scoop on all of the regional heads of government that are going to be in town and all of the key issues that they're discussing. Fresh off a flight from the Magic City back to funky Nassau, here in Rawson Square, where it all began for the ACL team this year, covering the 50th anniversary of Independence logo launch. It was a great night of fashion, fun, and of course, national pride. And it gave me an opportunity to showcase my my vocal ability and my appreciation for the classic Bahamian tune, Independence Morning. You remember? In case you don't, let's take a closer look. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Closer Look, the show dedicated to bringing you the facts. We ask the questions no one else will, and we get the answers that no one else can. I'm Arabina Apia. Happy New Year, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. Ladies and gents, I'm a little hoarse, but I believe it's only right that we begin this year on a high note. So excuse me, give me a minute while I clear my throat. Independence morning is like a baby borning. That's what Priscilla Rollins said. And you know what? She was right. And I know what you're thinking. I know you're thinking, ma'am, it's January, not July. So why are we talking about independence? Well, I'll tell you. It's because we are in the year of our Lord 2023, also known as the Bahamas Jubilee Anniversary of Independence. And what a major milestone that is. It's been a long, hard journey filled with some amazing highs and some devastating lows, and, if we're honest, our share of questionable decisions. But here we are. Since that fateful morning in 1973, we've been on our journey to find our national identity and create our own path in the world. And in many ways, we have done that. Our unique culture, our natural beauty of our archipelago, and our talents have truly made the world mark the manner of our bearing. And that's great. But what does that mean for us as a collective? It means that we now have the chance to reflect on where we've been, have frank discussions about where we are, and look optimistically to a bright future. More importantly, some might argue, is the chance we now have to celebrate. Here in TV land, it is Thursday, January 19th, and tonight we are coming to you from the iconic Rawson Square, where the Independence Secretariat officially kicks off the Road to 50 with the unveiling of the National Independence logo and the theme. Tonight, you'll hear from the head of the Independence Commission, Her Excellency Leslia Miller-Bryce, and see highlights from the monumental launch event. Stay with us. A closer look at the launch of the Road to 50 begins on the other side of the break. Woo! Well, that was certainly a whirlwind kind of day. I am eternally grateful to everyone who continues to watch and support A Closer Look. I am always so humbled by your kind words, your compliments, and your critiques. I hope that you've enjoyed this compilation episode because it's officially 1 year down and hopefully many more to go. We here at A Closer Look will continue to ask the questions no one else will and get the answers that no one else can, all in our pursuit to bring you the stories that mean the most to you. Till next time, everyone, I'm Arabina Pia. Good night.